goes without saying that I'm excited that our kids are going to have an opportunity to play. Obviously, every day presents new challenges, but there's a lot of negativity going around, and I'm not buying into it. I don't want any part of it. I was happy to see my guys this morning. We start talking about our game plan for Wednesday afternoon. We're going to be playing against a really talented, well-coached team in UT Arlington. Chris Ogden has been around the block a few times, knows this league well, knows a lot of our players well because his time at Tech and at Texas, he recruited this state and knows these guys probably as well as I do. So I'm really mostly excited, first of all, about the opportunity our kids get to play again, first time since March for most all of them, and that our fans get an opportunity to see basketball and that I get a chance to at least be a small part of it.
Thank you, Coach. And we'll get started with questions. Jacob Unruh, you've got the first one. Go for it.
Mike, how's it going this morning?
Doing well.
Good. Hey, usually you have a little bit more of a build up to the season with guys. You get a scrimmage, things like that. Do you really what's your comfort level and know what to expect from your guys going in there without any kind of a scrimmage or anything like that?
I feel good. I probably feel about the same as I would any other year. I don't know if I can feel good about what to expect as much, right? What rotations will look like, how gassed guys will be early in the game. But I scheduled this game for a reason. They're good, right? I wanted to play a quality opponent. I wanted to play on the road. Once we didn't have an opportunity to go to Lincoln as we thought we would before, to still play a pretty high-quality opponent. They were playing as well as anybody in their conference at the end of the year last year, and I recognize that. And so I'm excited to see how we respond to a different environment, probably a different environment than we normally would see. Obviously, I would expect they would have a sellout crowd in there if we were coming in for the first game on ESPN too. But obviously, I think they'll have an energetic crowd nonetheless. And obviously we got a lot of guys from that area who will be able to play in front of their parents. So I'm anxious, I'm excited, but I'm also optimistic that we've worked really hard to get to this point, and that guys will be ready.
Cade, you hear how he's calm, cool, and collected, but do you worry about Cade and other guys like that and how they respond in their first game?
Nah, players play. I tell you the thing that I've told him about is this can't be work, right? I want him to enjoy this as much as possible. This should be fun. Tomorrow will be practice, either 29 or 30. We're going to max out the opportunities we have before. So we're going to be prepared. And I want these guys to have as much fun playing this game as they can, knowing that a lot of people don't have the opportunity to play. And so even though I know that a lot of eyes will be on him, there'll be a lot of attention coming his way, I do want him to enjoy not just Wednesday, but the entirety of this season, as unpredictable as it could be, because you only get to do this so many times. So we want to relish the chances that we do get to put on that uniform and go compete with one another.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Next question is coming from Myron Patton. Go ahead, Myron.
Yeah, Coach. With this first game, you've had practice, you've had scrimmages. How much do you allow the players to figure some things out, or do you have more of a heavy hand in an early game like this? Because like Jake said, you hadn't had a scrimmage or anything like that. Do you approach it any different, I guess, in terms of, a scrimmage that you've had in a squad or whatever, more of a heavy hand, or do you want to learn more about what they can figure out on their own?
Wednesday's about the guys going out and competing. So I don't know if I ever really coach with a heavy hand. It's not really who I am. What I do is in practice, I try to give them all the tools. I tell them all the time, I want to put as many tools in their toolbox as I can so that when they see a situation, they know what they need for it. Sometimes it's a hammer, sometimes it's a screwdriver, sometimes it's a saw, whatever it is. But I want to make sure that when we go out there, we don't see something that we haven't seen and we don't know how to respond to it. But beyond that, I feel comfortable in our staff's ability to get these guys prepared for what they might see. And then in their ability, it's a player's game. And I feel like we got pretty good players who can go out and make plays when we need them to give ourselves a chance to win.
A couple of weeks ago, you said that you wouldn't trade your guards for any guards in the country. Tell people what you like about your guards and what they bring.
Well, I think, first of all, we've got a lot of versatility just within our backcourt, right? And obviously, it's obvious everybody starts with Cade, a 6'8" point guard, but they forget we had a pretty big point guard last year. In fact, Mr. Coach Fischella used to call him a linebacker masquerading as a point guard, right? He's 6'4", 220 himself. And now he's our second biggest point guard on our team. So that's a unique backcourt to have. And then you got a guy like Bryce Williams, who's as athletic as maybe any guard in the country, who can play on and off the ball, and a guy who's really dynamic in Avery Anderson. And then you got shot makers and Keelan Boone and Farron Flavors who can space the floor. And so I feel confident if I had to play 5 of those guys together, that I would feel good about our opportunities to at least get really good shots on every possession. I would be concerned on the defensive end in terms of rebounding. But again, it's a guards game. It's about spacing the floor and playing. And again, I'll take it to the bank. If you line up any team in the country and tell me I can have their backcourt or mine collectively, I'll take ours.
So you will think you do some 5-guard lineups, maybe Cade at your 5, I guess, or something like that, or what do you think you'll do that this season?
Absolutely. That'll happen.
Thanks.
Frank Bonner, you are up next.
Hey, Mike, good to see you.
Frank, good to see you, man.
When Donovan was asked about a player that he may look up to or model his game after, he had mentioned that, there's only a small amount of stars in the NBA, and he referenced Andre Iguodala as someone who just does everything right with rebounding and defense. With him having that outlook about the game, how does that help him get on the floor?
Yeah, I remember vividly when we signed this class, and I think he might have been the last one in the spring that signed with us, and then we got Bryce and Bernie in the summer. But a lot of what was talked about was how, right, with all this talent, how do you get these guys now to play well? And that's obviously what my job is to get guys to understand it's about the team. And the more success our team has, the more opportunities individuals we will have, regardless, whether it's postseason awards, whether it be opportunities at the next level, but most importantly, the opportunity to impact us having success as a group. And so what it tells me is that that message is resonating with him. I think he's going to be a big part of what we do, but it may not be the way he envisioned it, right? It may not be the way he had an impact on his high school team where he got to shoot 25 to 30 times a game and didn't have to play defense. Well, now it may be that he gets to shoot 2 or 3 times, and most of his responsibilities is with defense and rebounding and spacing the floor and not being a primary playmaker. So I'm glad to hear that message is getting through, and I hope that he continues to buy into his ability to help us win without being a primary scorer or a primary handler or somebody that we count on to score 20. Although he's got the ability to do it occasionally, it's not something that we're going to be game planning for him to do throughout this season.
I mean, when you get these players coming out of high school, some players are more comfortable watching film than others. Donovan said that, one thing that was new for him is actually watching film on himself versus just watching other opponents. How important is that part for these young guys in their growth of watching their own film?
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference is getting kids to buy into the strength and conditioning and resting part, right? Guys don't understand how important taking care of their bodies is, whether it be weights, training room rehab, going in and before and afterwards, getting into the hot tub. But then right after that is film study, right? I coach in a league with 9 potentially Hall of Fame coaches, and then there's me, right, who probably should be still working his way up through a lower level of college basketball. And so I have a lot of great respect for the ability of those guys to put together good game plans. And so for our kids, they have to understand how important it is that they know where their opportunities are going to come, what it's going to take for us to have success. Because, again, we're going to go to Norman, and Lon Kruger's going to have a game plan that he's not going to let Donovan Williams do X. So he better learn how to adjust and do Y. And we're going to go to Morgantown, West Virginia, and Bob Huggins is going to have a totally different game plan on how to do things. And then we're going to go to Lawrence and Manhattan. And every game, you're facing these great coaches who have the ability to take you out of things. And so learning the game, right, learning how to respond to certain situations is something that freshmen very rarely pick up early on in their freshman year. And so they struggle with that part. But to know that he spend more time at it, there's a reason he's been practicing better in the last 2 weeks.
From a general standpoint, like you said, that may be the hardest thing to get them to understand. How do you get them to understand? How do you bring them along in that?
Well, they most of the time they have to struggle first, to be perfectly honest. And I'm not sure how in depth he got with you guys, but he struggled. His first couple of weeks on campus were not very pleasant. He didn't shoot the ball well. He wasn't able to find success. The way he had success as a high school senior wasn't going to work here as a freshman. And until he gave that up and decided that he had to change in order to find opportunities to play with this group, it wasn't. So for him, it was struggling. For other guys, it may be just they know that the mechanics on their jump shot isn't good enough. They got to get it off quicker. But for him, it was just the mental approach that this is really, really hard. And just because you're the best player in high school doesn't necessarily translate to this level, especially at the highest level of college basketball. So it's good to hear that from him, to see that the work that he's putting in is paying off for him. But again, in high school, those things don't matter. He can just show up on Tuesday afternoon. He's the best dude out there, no matter. Unless some guy's showing up on the football team in February because, he's been out on the football field, he doesn't have to practice hard every day. And his coach is going to play him because he needs him to get 25 to have a chance. So nothing against those high school coaches. They're doing what they need to do to have success. But in college, the stakes are much higher.
Thank you, Mike.
Next question from Marshall Scott. Go for it.
Yeah, Mike, you guys had an inter-squad scrimmage on Saturday, I believe. Is there anything that you took from that you maybe didn't know before, or anything that kind of emphasized itself with that scrimmage?
We've come a long way defensively, but that's I'm not sure what that means. We were really, really bad defensively about 3 weeks ago. In fact, I was going to go sit in Coach Iba's chair in the arena and ask for advice because we were so far off. And so we've come a long way defensively. It's a concept that we actually understand now. We're not good at it yet, but at least there's some conceptualization that it matters, that we're not going to score 95 every game. We could score 90. The other thing is that we do have, between Keelan, Chris, Farron, and Bryce Williams, 4 guys who I feel confident will be able to space the floor for Caden Ice to make plays.
You mentioned defense. You mentioned, I think, last week that, the offensive scheme is kind of going to change this year with the talent you have. Does anything change defensively with the aggressive approach to man-to-man?
Yeah, that'll be more game by game, depending on the opponent and what we need to do to have success. But we've got a lot of depth in the backcourt. And one of the ways that you can use that is to extend the floor. Avery can come in and he can be a different kind of defensive player than Caden Ice on the ball. Bryce Williams can do that. So we got some defensive versatility that maybe allow us to press full court a little bit more. But beyond that, I don't see much philosophical differences other than making adjustments from game to game.
Gotcha. With it being 2020, I guess this could change tomorrow, but do you expect to have everyone available on Wednesday?
Yes. I'm trying to think through this now. Yes. Everybody's available to practice today, so.
Okay. And then we saw, I believe it was this morning, Scott Drew tested positive for the virus. Do you guys have a game plan if you're not able to coach a game, like who would step into that role or things along that nature?
Yeah, there is. I've got a really good staff. Obviously, Coach Sutton's been here with us for 3 years. He knows our staff. He knows what we're doing. I trust Eric Pastrana as well as anybody. Obviously, Barry Henson's still hanging around. So we got some guys capable of stepping in and pinch hitting if we need them to.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Jimmy Gillespie, you are up next. Go for it.
Hey, Coach. How's it going?
I'm great, man. Other than I got to look at this B on your chest.
I will say it was a shirt to a 5K to raise money for the Boston bombing.
Cool.
So, yeah. I'm not a Red Sox fan. Well, Coach, obviously, rebounding is a concern of yours. Is it getting better leading into Wednesday's game, or is it still a concern of yours?
It's getting better. It's gotten better because I think I've gotten Ice and Keelan, who both have done tremendous work on the glass here the last couple of weeks, to understand that they have to help us in there. Obviously, Cade is going to be on the perimeter a lot, both ends of the court, but those guys will have to play some as for us. Keelan Boone and Donovan Williams is progression over the last 2 weeks has helped him in terms of maybe having opportunities because he's a big physical guy who can rebound. I do think that we'll be able to figure that out. We need to figure it out soon because one thing I noticed from UT Arlington is they're long and they're athletic, and if we don't block out, that's somewhere that they'll hurt us.
Okay. And then, Coach, obviously, usually you start, season at home. Obviously, not going to this year, but how nice is it to be sort of a home game for several of your guys that are from the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Yeah, I thought it was neat. I appreciate the ESPN team for helping facilitate this. It's obviously a unique opportunity for UTA having a Big 12 team. I think the only other time was they opened this arena with the University of Oklahoma in 2012. So it's a unique opportunity, but we recruit there, and it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons, not the least of which I've always liked to challenge our team early in the season with a road game. We played at Charleston pretty early last year. I think 2 years ago we went to Tulsa. We played a lot of challenging road games in the non-conference, and part of it is to prepare ourselves for what I know is coming. I always say it. I mean, there's nowhere to hide when they say you got 18 of them and 9 of them, you don't have a choice. You got to go to Lawrence or you got to go to Manhattan. You got to go to Ames, and no matter what, they're going to be good. They're going to be ready to play, and if you're not, you won't have success. It's really that simple. If you're not prepared to play on the road, you're going to lose. And if you are prepared, most of the time you'll have a chance. But there are no guarantees. So what we're going to do is prepare ourselves for game one to be ready for the long haul when it comes to Big 12 time.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Next question coming to you from Fran Fraschilla. Go for it, Coach.
Hey, Mike, given all of the attention that Cade is getting right now, it's positive, obviously, all the preseason magazine, blogs, et cetera. What are a couple of areas that you want to see him improve on that, everybody's expecting LeBron James, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are areas that you think that as good as he is right now, he can improve on, not only for this season for your team, but also for his future?
Yeah, that's a great question, Fran. I think one of the things, and I talked to Cade about this very thing this morning, the first thing that I've got to make sure Cade Cunningham does, and I alluded to this earlier, is he's got to have fun. He's got to enjoy this. With that comes a lot of expectations in a good way, but it can feel pressure. He just turned 19 in September. I couldn't imagine it when I was 19. I was just happy Coach Vogler put me in at the end of games for a few minutes to rest somebody. But to be expected to be a preseason All-American and potential number one pick, he needs to be able to enjoy this process. And part of the way he enjoys it is he lets the game come to him. He doesn't put pressure on himself to shoot the first 5 shots, that he tries to get himself closer to the basket. He's a little passive still offensively. I think it's an area he can be more aggressive when he gets into the paint. He defers to passing. And sometimes at 6'7.5", 6'8", when he gets the ball into the paint over a 6'3" guy, the missed shot is just as valuable because you probably got a second defender coming over and you give your teammate who otherwise may drop the lob or not finish it anyway a chance to get the second shot for you. So just being more aggressive, looking to score in the paint. And then he's got to be conscious of getting to the free throw line where he's a good free throw shooter. And I think he should, because of his physical stature, if they're smaller guys, we're going to post them, and he should get to the line between 8 and 12 times a game, which will, again, if he's getting 8 points a game from the free throw line, he doesn't have to shoot 20 balls to get to 20 points. He can be more efficient in offensive situations.
Can you envision a time this season? I used to tell some of my better players, look, you hurt the team if you don't look to score. Can you envision a time this year where you may have to tell him, you're the best guy out here, would you please take over?
No, there's no question. It's something that our staff has talked about this summer, and I don't know how much you watched him. I know you've seen him a lot the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But Cade naturally isn't a scoring-minded player. Like, That's not his first tendency. He is a distributor. He wants other guys to get involved. And there's no question. There's going to be a game where I'm going to need him to shoot 25 times because he's going to have the ball and he's going to have to make the play to score to give us a chance. And that's got to be a mindset where he realizes it, and we know this is what we're running, and we're running it not for you to find somebody.
Right.
Not that he's going to take bad shots, but he's got to take sometimes tougher shots with defense than passing it to a teammate who's not as capable.
Thank you, Mike. See you tomorrow.
Jacob Unruh, another question. Go for it.
Mike, I'm sure you saw the NCAA stuff with Alabama and then Auburn self-imposing things. I was kind of curious, first, what's your reaction to kind of seeing those punishments, considering everything you're going through?
I'll be honest, frustrated. The situation seemed very close in circumstance, very different in punishment. And so frustrating would be the word I'd use. But at the end of the day, we have our process to go through. Alabama and Auburn has theirs. And, only thing you ask for is kind of like a coach in a game with officiating, right? You want consistency. If it's a touch foul on the other end, then it should be a touch foul here. If it's not a foul, then it's not a foul both ways. And so that's kind of more where the frustration comes. It just seems like there's a wide gap between the punishment when what I can read, I don't know all the details of how it got adjudicated, but the crime per se seems pretty comparable. The punishment does not.
That's something you guys are really going to kind of point to in the appeal, you think, now when you see that discrepancy?
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, this came out after our process got finalized the first time and in the middle of the appeal. So I kind of leave that up to the legal people and how that works logistically in terms of process. But I hope it's something that can be acknowledged as, hey, we may have something to reconsider here.
And what are your thoughts on the self-imposing? Not necessarily just Auburn, but people have done that a lot. You guys didn't take that path necessarily either, but what are your thoughts on being able to do that and change that?
I don't know. I mean, I guess you got to play by the rules that are in play, and that's what's on the table, right? There's some things we self-imposed. We didn't go as far as Auburn did. So I don't know if I can speak to each individual case per se, but, if it's all stemming from a lot of the same activity, it's hard to imagine. The only thing I would say is, I think Georgia Tech, I don't know if you guys follow much of this stuff when it doesn't include us, but Georgia Tech self-imposed a postseason ban sometime last year, and then there wasn't even a tournament, and so it was suffice, right? So how all of it works really is kind of confusing sometimes.